the first chess piece has moved on the Steelers' 2023 free agency board. William Jackson III was officially released today by the Pittsburgh Steelers, along with cornerback Carlins Plateau. The WJ3 move was bound to happen. It's just a little curious it came this close to the start of free agency. People like my friend Arthur Motes over on the podcast was getting a little concerned we'd be taking on WJ3's $12 million cap hit, and he would be on the team again for 2023. Carlins Plateau, didn't even know he was on the roster, to be honest. I just wanted to take a quick double check if he was one of those cornerbacks that spot started in that Buccaneers game. It was not him. Josh Jackson was one of them for sure. We had a couple safeties in there like Elijah Riley. James Pierre got a decent amount of playing time. Arthur Mollett was out there, but no Carlins Plateau. And with these moves, the Steelers are able to create almost $12.2 million in cap space, which gets us from $900,000 over in the cap to now $10.4 million under the cap. So just by releasing WJ3 and Carlins Plateau, we create enough cap room to take care of a Cam Sutton contract and probably some left over depending on his market. If he's going to get 7 or 8 a year, then we could allocate the rest of that money towards one of the safeties. And I thought it was going to be a slam dunk earlier in the offseason that we were going to cut Mitch, because obviously we're going to need to create some more cap room. From the looks of it, Mitch is still going to be on this roster. Maybe we could restructure him somehow, some way. There's TJ Watt, there's Minkah Fitzpatrick, Deontay Johnson. Who else? I think even Chooks, we could restructure their deals. We could also release an Ahkello Witherspoon. Miles Jack has been brought up as a cap casualty. I do not think that's happening, nor do I want that to happen. So we're just going to have to wait and see. Free agency is officially starting on Wednesday, March 15th, but negotiations can be started as early as Monday the 13th, and that was the day going back to last year when it was announced the Steelers were going to sign Mitch Trubisky. He was the first guy in that whole free agent period to agree to a deal. So don't be surprised if there's action early on in the week. We're not going to have to wait till it officially becomes open on the 15th. It's just how much more cap space are we going to open up by then? We'll just have to wait and see. But let me know down in the comments if you think there's any additional moves the Steelers are going to make. I have to assume Ahkello Witherspoon is going to be cut. And then I also am assuming we're going to restructure like 2 or 3 deals. We're probably going to have, I'd guess, around like 25 to 30 million in cap space to work with. But let me know down in the comments. And speaking of cornerbacks, we had a former Steelers cornerback, Joe Haden, go on I Am Athlete podcast, and their episode dropped yesterday. And he had some things to say about last offseason and if he was actually ready to hang him up.
When did you know it was time to retire?
Honestly, bro, I didn't know. I was training this whole offseason. I didn't plan on retiring this year. I wanted to do at least one more season.
Okay.
But the money wasn't right.
Not worth it, right?
It wasn't worth it. They was offering me $1.5 million to $2 million. I could have went to probably 8 teams for sure and signed 1.5 to 2. And then I was like, man, it doesn't make sense moving the family and I got my kids in school now. It was more of a love the game. They're not giving me what I felt like I'm worth. You know what I'm saying? I felt like it was a $5 million mark. If I couldn't get 5 a year, then I'm not playing ball no more.
So when I first saw this, I really didn't think too much of it. But then I looked back on the season and was thinking, could we have used Joe Haden? Because I felt like going back to last offseason, it was just time for the Steelers and Joe to part ways because of the cornerbacks that we already had in the room. We just signed a Levi Wallace, who's in the prime of his career, on a nice deal for both sides. I think it was a very, very affordable deal for the Steelers, but Levi Wallace obviously wouldn't have taken it if it didn't work for him. 2 years, $4 million a season. And then we got Ahkello Witherspoon back too, who showed us some flashes of greatness in the last 6 weeks of 2021. And he also is in technically the prime of his career age-wise. Was he like 26, 27? And we wanted to see what more he could do. Cam Sutton's obviously back. So I felt like with where Joe was at the point in his career, early 30s, played declining a little bit. He was banged up in 2021 too, missing some games. Where did he really fit in the cornerback room? And how much was he going to be looking for? Obviously, he said his market was only $1.5 million or like $2 million. So I could see why he was like, nah, you know what? It's better just not to play. He thought it was going to be 5. So I'm wondering, like, just looking back how the season went with the Steelers secondary, the ups and the downs, the injuries and whatnot. Should we, hindsight always is 2020. Should we actually have pursued Joe Haden and brought him back? I think, I don't know. How much does Joe Haden on last year's Steeler roster help us get out of a stadium with a win, you think? Do we get out of... Because I'm trying to think the games where we really felt like the secondary was lacking. There weren't too many, but the ones that it was, do you think Joe Haden makes the difference? Like the Bills game, the Eagles game? What other games? The game I already mentioned at the beginning, the game that our secondary was decimated the most was the Buccaneers, and we actually got out of there with a win. I felt like the secondary was pretty solid throughout. We just dropped picks against the Dolphins. Maybe Joe Haden catches one of those picks against the Dolphins. Maybe that's it, and we come out of that with a win. I just don't... It's tough. It would have been nice to have him for the depth because you weren't expecting Ahkello Witherspoon to get hurt and basically be out for the whole season. And then we bring in a William Jackson. He doesn't even play. At the same time, I feel like without having Joe Haden, that enabled Cam Sutton to elevate even more, and then Levi Wallace, specifically to do what we brought him here for. He got picks, and they stood on their own as outside cornerbacks. So, yeah, looking back, I don't think I would have pushed to sign Joe Haden. Even, I know knowing what we know now, I just think if you were to rewind back to last offseason, all the moves we made make logical sense. Like, hey, we're getting an Ahkello Witherspoon on a 2-year deal, $8 million. Same thing with Levi Wallace. Both at a better age than a Joe Haden. I guess it all depends on what Joe Haden would have been willing to step into. Would he have been willing to come in and only play maybe 40% of the snaps? Because if you were to tell me, hey, it's either Ahkello or Levi or a Joe Haden for the same price, I would have taken the younger guys based off what we saw with Ahkello late in 2021 and Levi being sold for the Bills over these last 2 seasons. But if Joe Haden just would have been an addition to the room, like, hey, we brought him in for like 4 or 5, yeah, I guess it wouldn't have hurt us. I just don't know where he would have fit and if him and the Steelers would have been on the same page with playing time and snap counts and whatnot. Yeah, the more I think, we could have probably used Joe Haden last year. Maybe he does. Does he equal a win? Does he equal 1 win, 1 extra win last year if he's just on the team? And that win gets us to the playoffs, and maybe we go on a Super Bowl run. So, yeah, if I had to go back, if you gave me the information we know now and said, hey, Joe Haden could be on the team for $5 million, I wouldn't have been opposed. I don't think anyone would have been opposed, right? But again, we didn't know all that last offseason. I don't think we made a mistake. It's just we went with the best information that we had. And those are the risks you take in life and also in sports. So, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this edition of Big Deke News on a Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Stay chilling. Peace.